Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to discuss which cards I currently have in my wallet. So in the world of points and miles, it's recommended to have a solid core of cards in your wallet. If you're a beginner, you probably should go with something like the Chase trifecta. If you happen to be someone who likes the more finer things in life, maybe go with something like the American Express trifecta. Or when you start to get more advanced, have a combination of cards from all different banks so you can end up getting the best multipliers for your spend. Now, while it is recommended to have a solid core, what happens to many people in the world of points and miles is that they begin to get themselves new cards every single few months because welcome offers are just so lucrative. So when people are just working on welcome offers all the time, they kind of forget about the cards that they currently have in their wallet because those cards end up getting very little use as compared to the card that they're working on the sign-up bonus with. So if you were someone who got 4 to 6 cards in the year, depending on your spending habits, those cards may have been your only focus as compared to any of those core cards you had in your wallet. However, if you play this game long enough, you'll begin to get rejected for cards more frequently than you used to. This year, to begin, I got approved for a number of cards, but in the last 4 months, I've applied for cards, but I've been denied for all of them. Because of this, I've only been using my core setup for the past 4 months, and I'm taking this as a sign to slow down a little bit with my applications. Now, although I love hitting sign-up bonuses because they just are so lucrative, I think I have a pretty solid core setup that works out really well for my lifestyle. So the first card in my wallet is going to be my dining card, and this ends up being the most popular dining card out there, which is the American Express Gold card. This card gives me 4x back at restaurants and at grocery stores. Now, I will admit that earlier this year, when the annual fee hit for this card, I was planning on canceling it. However, American Express did give me a retention offer that made it worth my while. This always is something that you should do when you are debating about canceling a card, seeing if you can end up getting yourself a retention offer because they may end up offering you enough points that either ends up completely covering the annual fee or covers a decent portion of the annual fee, which will end up meaning that there's other benefits that come with the card. Those end up being gravy on top to help cover the rest of it. So because of that retention offer, I told myself, well, I guess I'll just keep the card for one more year and then just cancel it after that because I didn't like the changes that they did to the American Express Gold card, raising up the annual fee and then also adding in these different benefits that I didn't see to happen to be useful. However, I noticed on my statement that I got credited for a purchase that I made at a bar that's walking distance away from me that I visit from time to time when I am watching either boxing or MMA fights. And this credit was the new Resi credit that you get $100 throughout the year, broken up into being $50 each half of the year. Now, when this credit was first added, I remember going onto Resi's website and seeing the different restaurants that happen to be in my area, and most of them end up being like expensive restaurants or just ones that I wouldn't end up visiting naturally. However, when I noticed that this bar was a part of Resi, I decided to look at some of the other bars that I like to visit from time to time. I noticed that there were other ones on there as well within my area. So because of this, I'm gonna be able to naturally hit the $50 each half of the year just because I like to go to these different places. So if you happen to have the American Express Gold card, definitely check to see the different restaurants that are out there when it comes to Resi. Because if you happen to live in a major city like I do, you may end up being surprised at how many different places are on there are places that you actually like to visit. Because it's not only just sit down fancy restaurants, they also have sports bars on there. So if you happen to go to sports bars a couple times throughout the year, then you can easily spend $100 just from those 2 visits. The next card in my wallet is going to be my favorite card and the one that I'm recommending to most people lately. This is going to be the Capital One Venture X card. If you want an easy to use travel credit card that can end up giving you a ton of value, the Capital One Venture X card is the best option. It does have a $395 annual fee, but it comes with a $300 travel credit and then also 10,000 points every anniversary of keeping this card open. So they're pretty much giving you $400 in travel for the $395 that they're asking you to pay them. And even though Points Miles does cover 95% of my travel costs, there are still trips that I take where I don't end up using Points and Miles, so that $300 travel credit through Capital One's travel portal ends up coming in good use in those instances. And on top of those credits, you also get Priority Pass lounge access and also access to the Capital One lounges. And the Capital One lounges look great. So if you happen to frequently fly out of, say, DFW or Dulles, then it can make a ton of sense to have this card in your wallet. And one of the great things about the Capital One lounges as compared to, say, either the Priority Pass lounges or the Sapphire lounges or the Centurion lounge is that with the Capital One lounges, if you happen to go to the lounge and it ends up being overcrowded and you can't get in, the difference with them is that they offer a grab and go. So if you happen to be going to this lounge just to get yourself a quick bite, well, at least you still have the option to do so by taking whatever food that they have as an offer for you to leave with. As compared to the Centurion lounge, you could end up going there and they could tell you that it's completely packed. And the only other options you're gonna have is either to go to the really expensive restaurant down the hall, or you'd have to just sit by your gate starving. And these lounges have been becoming more and more packed lately, so there's a good chance that if you happen to have an American Express Platinum card or a Chase Sapphire Reserve card, and you're trying to access one of their lounges, they're going to end up being denied. So at least Capital One is working towards trying to make their customers happy, even if they can't let them inside of the lounge. I pray that they add a Capital One lounge to LAX because a lot of the times I'm just trying to get myself a quick bite to eat, and I'm also pretty cheap. Honestly, the Capital One Venture X card is a card that you could have in your wallet and never actually use it on spend and still get yourself positive value because of the perks that come with it. However, I do use mine for spend and I use it as my catch-all card, giving me 2x back on all of my purchases. I'll use it in categories such as like when I go to the dentist or if I have me paying for my car insurance. Whatever type of spend that isn't going to give me a higher multiplier of my other cards is when I end up using my Venture X card. Now, the reality is that the vast majority of my spend goes on these first two cards that I named, being the American Express Gold card and the Venture X card. The other cards that I have in my wallet do get used from time to time, but these two cards that I just named are the only two cards that I'm going to be guaranteed to use every single week of the year. The next card in my wallet is a card that I added into my wallet about 6 months ago, and this is the Chase Aeroplan card. Now, this card mainly only gets used when I happen to be traveling internationally and I go to places that don't happen to accept American Express. Because I no longer have my Chase Sapphire Preferred, my other cards that I have as options are either going to give me foreign transaction fees or they're going to end up giving me 2x back on my spend. So I could end up using my Venture X card when I end up going to restaurants when I'm traveling overseas, but I find Airplane miles to end up being incredibly valuable, so I'd rather earn 3x back with my Airplane card on dining purchases as compared to earning 2x back with my Venture X card. Now, if I could replace my Airplane card with a card like, say, the Capital One Save for One card that has no annual fee, then I would. However, Capital One is not letting me product change my other Capital One card to becoming a Save for One card. So until that happens, the Airplane card is my backup card for restaurants, especially with international travel. This card is one of the few airline cards that I would recommend for any person to get. This card allows you to pay yourself back on travel purchases at 1.25 cents per point, so this ends up rivaling the Chase Sapphire Preferred card, and also if you end up taking advantage of a transfer bonus, you could actually end up even beating the Chase Sapphire Reserve card if you end up timing out correctly. But even on top of that, just redeeming your Airplane miles with this card can end up giving you a ton of value if you just end up redeeming it with Airplane's partners. I redeemed Airplane miles to be able to fly on Lufthansa's first class earlier this year, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. So if you have American Express cards that you love to use, always have a backup, either Visa or MasterCard, because in many places that you will go overseas, they just aren't going to be accepting American Express. The next card in my wallet is my Chase Ink Preferred card. This card earns 3x back in a number of different categories, but the one that I focus on ends up being the travel category. So although I mainly use points miles on my flights and hotels, there are other things that categorize as travel, such as rideshare services and also tours. And I happen to spend quite a bit on rideshare services. Because of the fact that LA as a city isn't very good when it comes to public transportation, every time I go to the airport, I either get myself an Uber or a Lyft, and this usually ends up costing me somewhere between $40 to $50 each way. So if I get an Uber, I get 3x back on my Uber ride, and if I get a Lyft, I get 5x back on my Lyft ride because Lyft and Chase happen to have a partnership. So if you end up using Chase's non-co-branded cards on Lyft rides, you do end up earning additional points. So my Chase Ink Preferred gets all of my travel spend that doesn't happen to be either on flights or hotel stays. The next card in my wallet is my World of Hyatt card. Now I will admit that my World of Hyatt card doesn't get as much use as it used to because it used to actually be my catch-all card before I got my Venture X, because after you end up spending $15,000 on that card, you end up getting a free night award certificate, plus you also end up getting 6 elite nights towards your Hyatt status. But now that I have my Venture X card, I'd rather earn 30,000 points with Capital One as compared to earning 15,000 points with Hyatt and then also earning 6 elite nights and a free night award certificate, because of the fact that not only do I find the 30,000 points to be more valuable and also more versatile, but that free night award certificate is becoming more and more challenging to use at properties that I actually wish to stay at. So now my World of Hyatt card only really gets used with my gym and also when I happen to be staying at Hyatt properties to earn 4x back on those Hyatt stays. And the next two cards that I'm going to mention are not technically cards that are in my wallet, mainly because of the fact that my wallet is pretty small, and since I don't end up using these cards that frequently, they don't end up taking a place in my wallet. But these two cards end up being the Citi Custom Cash card and then also the American Express Platinum card. The Citi Custom Cash card earns 5x back in one of many different categories that they offer with the card, so I end up using this card for my gas purchases. So I just leave this card in my car, so I'm ready to fill up my gas tank, I just use this card for my gas purchase. And since I drive a Prius, that sometimes only ends up being one time a month. And then the last card is my American Express Platinum card, and this card sits in my travel backpack, mainly because of the fact that the Amex Platinum is just a bad earner card. So unless I am working on an Amex offer, it really doesn't make any sense for me to have this card in my wallet. I do use this card when I am not redeeming points for flights because I get 5x back on flight purchases. But I mainly have it in my backpack for 2 reasons. The first reason ends up being because the most times I'm going to end up taking out this card is going to be when I am going to the airport to try to access the Centurion Lounge. Now, I don't access the Centurion Lounge every single month, so instead of me having it just sit in my wallet this entire time, I might as well just leave it in my travel backpack, which I always take with me on every single trip that I go on. And the second reason I keep this card in my travel backpack is because it's always wise to have a backup card somewhere away from your wallet, just in case your wallet becomes either lost or stolen. A couple years ago, I was in New Orleans and my wallet vanished. Now, I don't know exactly how it happened, but my guess is that I probably was distracted due to the fact that it was Mardi Gras and then some slick Louisiana boy just pickpocketed me. But all I know is that I was very happy to have my American Express Platinum card in my travel backpack because if I didn't, I wouldn't have had any form of payment for the rest of the time I was there. But that's the list of the cards that I currently have in my wallet. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and let me know in the comment section down below what are your thoughts on my wallet and which cards you currently have in your wallet. Now, if you happen to have any questions, you can also drop those in the comment section down below, and I'll do the best I can to answer it. If you happen to be interested in any cards, check out my links in the description box to learn more. If you do decide to use any of my links, it does really help out the channel, and I'll be incredibly thankful for your support. If you happen to really like this video, do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and have a beautiful rest of your day.